Hi, my name is Shadi Attia. I'm an assistant professor in sustainable architecture at Liège University in Belgium, and I'm going to talk today about selecting a journal for publication. And the question mainly I'm trying to answer is, what kind of journal should I select for publishing my work? Well, I'm inviting you to look at previous videos on my channel and subscribe to my channel to have the latest updates. If you find this video interesting, I invite you please to like it. So, the content of today's presentation, it is going through the types of journals. I'm going to present the types of journals. What are the bibliometrical indicators used to assess and evaluate journals to be able to select them, and finally how to make this selection choice. My audience that I'm expecting to watch and benefit from this presentation, early career researchers who are in the master's or a PhD or even in the postdoc or after, to have an idea what is it about when it comes to selecting a journal for publishing. Well, at the end, or at the beginning actually, we should not forget that it's all what counts is the quality of your work. The more you have a solid work, the more it represents your quality. And this was a video presented before, but we have to keep into account that in order to show that we have solid work and we are capable to do it, we need to publish. Well, publishing is important and all it matters is the content. Journals have an important role in selecting, curating the most relevant, important, impactful papers. So therefore, we should target journals because they are the gate of quality. Journals are today's contemporary method or vehicle to make sure that the research is of good quality. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the types of journals. So let's have a look. First of all, before knowing what are the types of journals, you need to know what is peer reviewing. Peer reviewing is a scholarly peer review is the process of subjecting an author's research to the scrutiny of others who are experts in the same field before a paper describing this work is published in a journal. Meaning that to publish a journal, you are a researcher, you submit a manuscript, other scholars or peer scholars in the same field of specialization, they will review the work, they will modify it and suggest improvements. You take these modifications, you improve your work and you respond to the reviewers' suggestions and comments. And by then, if they approve the work, your work can be called published based on a peer review. Peers means people who are like similar to you. Most of the time, when you are an early researcher, career researcher, the peer reviews will be more expert on the level of knowledge compared to you, but that's the only way to pass the work through those peers. Well, we have something called blind peer review, double-blind peer review, or triple-blind peer review. And these are different levels of reviews where every time the reviewers cannot know who is the author. And in the same time, the author cannot know who is the reviewer. So keep in mind that peer reviewing in general is blind and should be blind. And it could be double or triple. And even the editor can sometimes become blind, not knowing who submitted. And this is the role of printing or publishing houses, that they take the manuscript from you they are playing the role of the intermediate person. They take the publication without telling you who will review it. They will inform reviewers if they want voluntary to review the work or not, and the reviewers will accept. And the publishing house should make sure that your data and information does not communicate your identity. So this is the peer reviewing and how it is blind in most of the cases. Review process takes time, you have to take into account. So you are now looking for a journal, also look at how fast does the process goes. There are some journals it takes 2 years, 3 years before your paper gets published, and there are other journals you can make it in 2-3 months, assuming the same quality of work. Cost free in most of the cases. Journals are for free, at least in the field of architectural engineering and construction where I am working in. Review process is very rigorous, so it's serious, it's tedious. It will be very serious process. Your credit for your publication will be always in the form of citation. So after you did this work and you published your work, you will get credited mainly by others citing your work. Make sure your journal paper is peer-reviewed. If it's not peer-reviewed and if it's not blind peer-reviewed, then you should doubt about the rigor of this journal. As you can see in this image, here are the different representation. The researcher has, she or he, good data. They start to write a manuscript. They submit the manuscript to an editor. The editor of a journal is kind of managing and reviewing also the quality of work, assigning external reviewers. External reviewers communicate only with the editor and give their opinions. If the editors find these comments useful for the author, he will or she will pass them to the authors to take them into account and address them. And finally, if again this process of coming back to reviewers to approve the work that the author has modified, if the reviewers agree that the work is good, they give the recommendation to the editor to accept the work. So this is the process you should take into account, so that before I start about what are the types of journals, you are already aware about the process of publication. Well, publishing houses, they are playing this role of intermediate medium between reviewers and authors, and they are responsible to make sure that there is quality in this work or in this process. We are talking about 45 million documents. They are indexed in the Web of Science, and they are published in the largest or the biggest publishing houses: Elsevier, Springer, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, and Sage. They are the 5 main publishing houses worldwide. They have most of the journals are published under them, and as you can see, these are some examples. Here, this is Elsevier. I already recognize the logo of those publishing houses: Elsevier, Wiley, Taylor and Francis, Springer, Sage, and so on, Sage. So you can see that those are different public journals, and each journal is identified according to the publishing house. The all published, those are more, the all published more than half of all academic papers in the peer review literature in 2016. So those are big publishers. So you have, most probably, you will find out that your journal, maybe, I guess, high chance, 80% chance, it will be associated with one of those publishing houses. Okay. What are the types of journals we have? We have 3 major types. The first type is the limited access journals. Those are journals, they are available online or printed, but you can only access them through subscription or paying per view. So those are limited access journals. You publish for free, yes, but accessing your published work is not for free, okay? And in universities, university that has the budget to make subscription, they allow you to download or access these limited access journals without paying, but only with your university identifier or access code. So this means that when you are in university and you search and you find a journal paper and you download it, this means that the university is paying to the publishing house, because by default limited access journals, they are not letting their the publications getting accessed without paying fees. Okay, so this is the first type of journals, and this is the most common type that we find today. The second type of journal is the open access journals, and this is journals that allow publishing and in the same time downloading or accessing the publications for free. It's called open access. But take care of something, you will pay for publishing. So you as an author, you will pay for your publication, while in the first case, readers will pay. So you will figure out and ask maybe, okay, but why there is already a payment? Well, there is a payment because there is a lot of cost associated with the production of publication, and I will show that later on. So you have to keep into account, to publish, it costs money. The question is, who will pay this money? In the first case of limited access journals, readers pay the money. These readers could be big libraries, they could be countries and so on, or kind of associations. In the case of open access publication, the publication will be available online for free, but the author will pay for it. I personally, I don't prefer authors to pay for it. I prefer always to work with limited access journals, assuming that you are in a university that is paying subscription fees to access the publications. And in the same time, we should take into account that even limited access journals, they allow you to have the publication open access, but if you pay fees to make it open access. So today, it is possible to have a limited access open access publication in a limited access journal. But their policy in general is having limited access journals. Okay, so those are the two types. We have the third type, which is called the predatory journals, and those are very dangerous publishing houses. I warn you to not publish in these places. There is a special video, I call it Avoid Predatory Publishers. They are publishing houses that are pretending that they are good, leading to good research and good quality publications, but in fact, most of the time they are using young researchers. They require you to pay money, and in the same time they have a very flawed or even not existing review process. But the problem is that they are making a lot of noise, they are making a lot of marketing, and in the video I explain how to avoid this. So I would say those are the three main publication types that you have. Make sure that you're always either publishing in a limited access journal or in an open access journal. My advice, if you have a budget and a project that is funding your project, you can pay to make your publication open access, because this is a big discussion in Europe, and Europe is trying to through different mechanisms to say how are we funding money and research, and then journals keep it from the public. We want to have publications that even the public that are not part of universities, they can access directly to these publications. So we are now in the middle or in a transition phase in a big discussion about open access journals versus limited access journals, but so far I advise you to work on limited access journals, because also they are allowing for open access publication if you pay the fees for a specific paper. Well, if you look at this example, you can see here that this is the article processing charge, and as you can see that the processing charge costs money, and there is subscriptions to cover that, and you can see the different revenues in millions of British pounds according to statistics of 2014. And when you look at any journal publication, I advise you to look at the financial part or the cost part behind it. Any publication that is with a subscription, printed or online, as you can see, it has one part of it voluntary peer reviewing, that's for free. We are not happy with that, but that's the case. There is the cost for article processing, which means administering peer review, assuming average rejection rates, editing, proofreading, typesetting, graphics, quality assurance. These are all tasks related to article processing. Then we have other costs related to editorial, covering editorial issues, rights of management, sales and payment, printing, delivery, online user management, marketing, communication, help desk, and online hosting. So this is the third component in the cost. Then we have management and investment cost. This is a bit this color in yellow, and as you can see, it includes the cost to establish journal assured 20% for subscription. And finally, we have margins. These are assumed to be 20%. So publishing houses, they make profits, and they are profiting every year, and these are included in the calculation or the breakdown of costing for publishing. Now, as you can see, this is the print online scheme, the highest cost. When we move to subscription only online without printing, because in the past, when you get published, you would be asked that they will send you a printed copy of your journal publication. Today, it is rarely happening. Most of the time, people are just getting the PDF. so they are just getting a digital format for the publication, but in the past it was a yellow printed paper kind of thing, and it was also costing. Today also most libraries, they stopped having any physical copies for journals. They are mainly relying on the online access. So you can see the difference in costing reduced from moving from printed hard copies to soft copies. And then the least costly publishing process for a journal is the open access. As you can see, the open access is cutting a lot of the cost of management and investment, because you are putting them online, they are for free and they are stable. You don't need a lot of maintenance for that, and then the cost is going down. So you can see also these are some representations to make you aware that publishing costs money, and therefore when I talked with you earlier saying that limited access journals, they are living and thriving based on subscription, this is the reason why. Actually, publishing houses, they are providing a very good quality, a very good service for the scientific community, not all of them, but most of them, and this quality includes these different tasks I talked about: article processing, management, investment, and setting this framework for publishing. Just a little example. Elsevier, one of the largest ones, reported revenue $1.5 billion for first half of 2014. This means that there is money, it's a big industry, and the point here is to make sure that we understand how it operates. Okay, regarding predatory publications, take care. Publishing in fraudulent journals is criminal. So even if you are intensive you have the intent to publish in a predatory journal and you are aware that this is not right, it is considered as a fraud. So I advise you again to watch the video about avoiding predatory publishers. Okay, talking now, we summarized the previous part. We have three types of publication. We have limited access publications, we have open access publications, and we have predatory publications. Those are the three types. Let's go now talk about the bibliometric indicators and the impact factors. What are those things? Well, in order to be able to know what is a good journal and what's a bad journal, we need to have a way of classification and ranking, okay? Worldwide, there is different indicators that are used to assess two things. We either assess a journal, so these are called journal ranking indices, or we assess a researcher, like the H-Index, okay? So I will talk about the journal ranking indices first, and then I will talk about the H-Index, but you have to keep into account that this is still a new way of making sure how to assess the quality of journals. So it is still evolving, but we are now in a kind of maturity to assess that. The first journal ranking index, it's called the Scimago Journal Rank. Scimago Journal Rank, it is powered by Scopus, and what is it doing? It is mainly ranking the journals. It's creating a list of journals every year. It is ranking them per country. You can also see the ranking on the country level, and it's providing visualization tool to do literature review and correlations. So this is the first kind of ranking, internationally recognized ranking for journals. It's called the Scimago Journal Rank. It is freely available from their website. You can look at the website, and it's also available on Scopus. It considers 3 years of journal statistics. So it's seeing this journal in the last 3 years, how many citations, how many publications from the same journal. It measures the contextual citation impact. It looks at self-citation. Self-citation is limited. It limits the self-citation so that the journal itself relies on self or internally published journals that are citing the same journal. It's focusing also mainly on external citation from other journals to the publications of that particular journal. And citations are weighted by the SCI Index. So the Scimago Journal Ranks provides for each journal an index. And this index called SGR, this SGR index, is simply indicating the quality or the rank of the journal. So you go on the list and you can see it together. I will show you some example. This is an example of a list. I typed this address on the website. I've come up on the website. I went to engineering, architecture. Then I selected Western Europe, where I work. And I said I want to have ranking of all journals 2016. So simply these are the parameters I'm trying to identify. I'm asking this platform to give me a list of journals that are in Western Europe, that are in the architectural engineering fields for the year 2016, and I'm asking them to rank them. And as you can see, they come up with a list of publications, and this is ranked according to the most impact that they are creating. So the highest journal is the most impact, having the highest impact, and the least it goes, it's a very long list, it means that it has less impact. And when I see this list, I can say, okay, voila, these are the journals that are in my field according to their importance and their impact. In the same time, next to this information, it is giving next to each journal publication something called a SGR number. So you can see here 1.2, it's going down, suddenly became 0.5, meaning that this is an indicator that shows the impact of the publication. And like that, when we start to communicate, I tell you, okay, I'm going to publish in the Journal of Architectural Science Review. Then you can say, okay, what is the SGR number? I can tell you, okay, it's 0.6. And then somebody else says, I prefer that you publish in another journal, the Journal of Building Performance Simulation, for example, because it has a higher SGR number, and so on. So we start to be able to compare journals according to their impact. Okay, this is another example for the same platform. I just clicked on this button there, and by clicking on this button, I eliminated all journals that are based on online subscription, which means that I only see now journals that are open access. Open access meaning what? That it's not the reader who will pay the fees, it is me as an author. If I have a budget, it's good for me, and this means that the publication will be available online for free, accessible at any time for any person in any country in the world for free. So this is the advantage of the Scimago journal ranking. It is transparent, it allows you to classify and look at different publications, and it provides the SGR number to make sure that you are able to rank the publications. Well, let's look at this example. This is a journal, it's called City Culture and Society. I went to about this journal, I googled the journal on internet, I found the website, I looked at about this journal, I click. Why I'm doing that? Because I want to know the bibliometric index of this journal, and here it tells me Scimago journal rank SGR 0.335. So this means that this journal is communicating the value of its importance according to the SGR index. So it is a way to make sure that this journal is not a predatory journal. Okay? Moving now to another type of bibliometric indicator. I talked already now about the Scimago and the SGR on the left side. I'm now moving to another journal ranking index, which is called the Science Citation Index. It's another journal rank. I told you that the previous one was about Scopus. Here we are Thomson Reuters. Thomson Reuters is responsible for it, and the Science Citation Index rank is a citation index for papers produced by the Institute of Scientific Information, which is today owned by Thomson Reuters. And the Institute of Scientific Information adheres to strict evaluation process to assure the credibility of journals. The ISI database provides some measures of the academic impact of the papers indexed in it, and the Science Citation Index covers more than 8,500 notable and significant journals across 150 disciplines. The index is made available online through different platforms such as the Web of Science. So this is another type of indexing. The first type was under Scopus, this type is under Thomson Reuters, and you always have to make sure, my advice, that your journal is listed in the Science Citation Index. Well, this is how it looks. You can see different publications and you can see their importance ranked according to their importance. And the Science Citation Index, they developed their own factor that measures the impact of the index, which is called the impact factor. This impact factor, it's a calculation. It happens every year, and it happens every 5 years. And it happens for the journal, and it's a ratio between citations and citable items published in a journal. So they collect all the publications, the number of publications of a journal in a year. They count them all, and then they see how much those publications were cited, and they divide this number on this number, and finally they come up with a number called the impact factor. So this impact factor shows how much journals were published here in this, how many papers were published in this journal, and how much they were cited. And the higher this impact is, it shows that it means that this journal is important, and it means that this has an impact, and many people cited, and also many people publish in this journal. So the impact factor is another citation index, and it's related to the Science Citation Index. Okay, so this is how it looks, and you can see in the recent years always this kind of data citation index, Thomson-Reuters. This is a sign. Even emerging journals that still were not listed, they use these logos to communicate that we are a quality journal. So make sure your journal is listed in this list. The impact factor, it is a cumulative contribution of articles with different citation rates to total journal impacts, and it's a correlation. Journals' impact factors are determined by technicalities unrelated to the scientific quality of the articles. They are depending on the research field a lot. There's high impact factors are likely in journals covering large area of basic research. So you will find that the whole engineering and architectural engineering, engineering in general does not have a big or a high impact factor. We are talking about 4 or 5 or 6 as an impact factor compared to the medicine, which is sometimes 20 or exceeding the 20 as an impact factor. So these are some disadvantages of the impact factor because it is reflecting the popularity and the size of the community that is doing research in this area. So sometimes there is critiques, but unfortunately it is used. Article citation rates determine the journal impact factor, not the scientific quality. So be aware that the impact factor is not representing, and also the SGR factor of Scimago is not representing the quality of research, but it's representing how much this work is cited and recognized by others. Okay, another example, I am putting the SGR factor coming from Scimago against the impact factor coming from the Science Citation Index. And you can see both on the screen here. This is a journal. It is called City, Culture and Society. I look at about to know data, and I found out that they have a SGR number 0.335. Okay? In the same time, I'm trying to look here for an impact factor. I cannot find it. They don't have an impact factor. This means that this journal is not recognized with an impact factor by the Science Citation Index, but it is recognized by the Scimago Index. Let's go to the second example. This is another journal called Energy and Buildings, and I can see here SGR number 2.093, and I find explicitly mentioned impact factor. This means that this journal is indexed in both lists. It is in the Scimago journal ranking, and it's in the Science Citation Index ranking, journal ranking, meaning that it is cited in both. Today in the research community, we are looking to have the impact factor more reliable, or at least I am talking about myself in this sense. I am relying more on impact factor in my work. So I try to only publish in journals that has an impact factor. So I advise for that. Well, I cannot claim this is better or not better. This is out of the scope. But all I can say that I am relying more on the impact factor to make sure that this journal is strictly adhering to scientific quality measures. Okay, I am still in the discussion about the different journal ranking indices. We talked about Scimago and we talked about the Science Citation Index. I'm going to talk about the third one, which is called the Eigenfactor. The Eigenfactor is a free available online. It is evaluated, citation weighted by the Eigenfactor based on the citing the journal. Self-citations are excluded, and it is a project, academic project developed in the University of Washington, and it has a similar calculation process to Google page ranking. It is still not so much used, but it is one of the new emerging factors compared also to the Google page rank. So to summarize, we can say we have mainly the Scimago and the Science Citation Index. Next to it we have the Eigenfactor, it's a new one, and we have also the Google page rank. Those are 4 main ranks, but personally I am advising for my own work and my scholars working with me to follow the Science Citation Index with the impact factor. Okay? Now, what is the H-Index? As you can see, it's here talking about people. So these were indexes for the journals, and this is another index for people. The H-Index is an author level metric that attempts to measure both the productivity and citation impact of the publication of a scientist or scholar. And the index is based on the set of the scientist's most cited papers and the number of citations that they have received in other publications. And the index was suggested in 2005 by Jorge Hirsch, a physicist, as a tool for determining theoretical physicists' relative quality, and is sometimes called the Hirsch index or the H-index. So this is the history about the H-index, and it's simply representing productivity and the citation impact. You have to make sure that you have a H-index, you know. Albert Einstein, this is just a joke. You can see already he has a H-index of 103. He is cited many times and he has a profile. For sure this is not true. It's just an example. And you can see that the H-index is based on a formula where it shows, for example, a scientist has a H-index of 5 if her or his top 5 cited works are cited 5 times at least. So this is the correlation for the H-index, and I advise you all to look at your H-index as a quality for you of a researcher. Now, to summarize what I was talking about, it is very important to look at the following. Now we have different journal ranking indices. I advise you to work on the following. When it comes to looking for a journal publication, make sure that it is in the Thomson-Reuters Science Citation Index. When it comes to the H-index, we have mainly 2 indexes for the H. One is made by Google and one is made by Scopus. Okay? This is my own H-index, and you can see on Google Scholar I have a H-index of 15. Okay? It's a high number. Why? Because the same H-index, but not on Google Scholar, on Scopus, is 9. So it is the value of 9. This means I went down. Why? Because Scopus is taken into account mainly journals and publications that are listed only in the Scimago list. However, Google is taking any kind of citation and any kind of publication that cited my work, which means that the Scopus H-index, it is more severe, but it's more serious, and it represents more reality. Today, when we look at a researcher, we try to know what is her or his H-index, because it represents the impact, the citation, the productivity. And Scopus H-index is always lower than the Google's index, because Scopus is only taking publications that are already listed in the Scimago list, meaning that the reliability of the H-index of Scopus is higher than the reliability of Google, because Google is simply taking any citation, even if you are cited in the newspaper, if you are cited in a blog, if you are cited in any document that Google can reach, they will add it to their calculation number. So keep into account that you have a H-index in Google and you have a H-index in Scopus, and the most representative is the Scopus H-index. So this is the overview for the bibliometric indexes, and now I would like to share with you a table that I created to kind of summarize this information. Well, the most important to keep retain from this presentation, we have different journal ranking indexes. Those are three the journal indexes: Scopus, Thomson Reuters, Eigenfactor. Scopus worldwide and known in China, for example. Thomson Reuters worldwide and Europe. This is the impact factor, the journal ranking indicator called impact factor, and the journal ranking indicator here is called SGR. This is calculated during the 3 previous years. This is during the 3 previous years and the 5 years. The SGR is older, initiated in 1960. The Science Citation Index in 2000. And the Eigenfactor is very recent. Still it is less used. So this is on the level of journal rankings. Now you need to know that H-index, there are different H-indexes. We can have the Thomson Reuters H-index, we can have the Scopus H-index, and we have the Google Scholar H-index. The most reliable so far is the Scopus H-index that aims to quantify the scientist's productivity based on the most cited papers, and I advise you to follow this and follow this Thomson Reuters. Also, I have to change that. Sorry for that improvisation, but this is the, let's say, the summary of the presentation, that you should focus on the H-index and Scopus and look at journals that are indexed in the Science Citation Index under Thomson Reuters. Okay, so I can move now to the third part and the last part of this presentation, how to select now the journal. Now you know that journals are published in publishing houses. They need to have a ranking, they need to be part of a ranking that recognizes them as quality journals. You need to know that they have an impact factor, and this impact factor ranks their importance and shows that they are belonging to the scientific, real scientific community. Now you know that, let's go select a journal. I advise you first thing to do, to create a checklist, and you ask yourself, is this journal the right fit for my work? Does the topic match the journal scope, the topic I'm working on? Does the journal publish this type of article? Is it a review article or other? Or is there a reasonable chance for acceptance? Very important to keep these questions in your mind. Is it read within the communities I want to reach? Because you are publishing, you should publish in your community. Make sure that you are publishing in a journal that is read in your community, and you ask yourself, is the journal of a good quality or not, and can it be trusted or not, so that you avoid any predatory practices. So there is a website, you can have a look at it. It shows you think, check, submit, and it can help you to identify the journal that you might publish in. You can make use of journal directories. They're very useful. We have the journal guide, we have the directory of open access journals. These are directories or platforms that shows you or help you to identify a journal to publish at. There are also tools that match your paper title abstract to potential journals. We have the EDANS editing tool. You can type the keywords, type the title, potential title, and then finally this engine will tell you what are the potential journals that match your topic. There's also the journal author name estimator, very useful, and we have also Elsevier journal finder. You can use it to identify the best matching journal. This is the Elsevier journal finder. It looks like that. It's an interface. You can Google it. You will type the potential or the prospective, the expected title of your work. You put some keywords, you put the abstract, and automatically the finder will search for potential places where you can publish and give you some recommendations. Already these are some recommendations to that can come out. It will come out in a shape of a series of journals related to your topic. Don't get trapped. Many times people, they know that they need to select a journal. They published maybe something in a conference a conference paper, and then directly they get attacked by a journal like that. It's saying, dear Mr. X, we have learned that your paper, whatever the title, got published in the conference, this conference. We sent our call for paper to you some days ago, and we know, wondering whether you have received it or not. Since we have got no reply from you, it would be kind of you to inform if you received it. And actually they're simply starting to wait that you answer them, and then they start to tell you, okay, you can publish with it, it will be very easy, our publish process is fast, and so on. And then suddenly you discover, yes, I published in a journal, but it is not indexed, it has no impact factor. So this is under the predatory work. Also keep into account that many professors, in order to get tenured, they have the pressure to be editors. So many researchers or academics, they want to become editors, so they take the lead to edit some journals, and then they make calls in public. They say, there is a special issue on this kind of journal, and it's a scientific journal, you can publish with this and you have a publication. And then first thing I always pose in the question, I say, is there a journal impact factor? And then people start to say nearly, it will come in the future. And simply this shows that there is a kind of hesitation and unclarity about how to deal with these kind of issues of rigor in publication. So from one side you find many people promoting that you publish in their journal, but in the same time their journals are not indexed or ranked, especially in the Thomson Reuters Science Citation Index, which is the most seriously or seen as the most serious ranking, journal ranking index. So I advise you, whether you get a fishy invitation or you get a generous invitation from professors or scholars or editors, whoever invites you, even if it's your own personal supervisor, take this invitation, take the journal, check it on the Science Citation Index, make sure it is indexed, check it has an impact factor, and then I advise you that you publish in that journal. Also keep into account, don't get trapped, that there is something called the conference proceedings. Today Elsevier is doing a very interesting service, which is allowing people to have something called procedure in Science Direct. And in the procedure they allow any paper in a conference based on certain conditions to get online via Elsevier. Okay, so many students, when they see a publication like that and they find here energy procedure Science Direct, they think that this is a journal publication. In reality it is not. It is just a kind of platform that hosts the publication, and as you can see, it's talking here about international conference of so and so, and I can find the authors. This does not mean that this is a journal publication. This does not mean that it has an impact factor. This does not mean that it is indexed, this publication, in a journal that is indexed in the Science Citation Index of Thomson Reuters. So please take care of these things. It's very difficult, I know, to get out of these invitations. They come every time you are going in a conference. You will receive this invitation everywhere on LinkedIn or on different public medias, social media invitation. And also the new Science Direct is creating some kind of confusion for many researchers. They think that this is a journal publication. So please make sure that you are not getting trapped. This is an example that I am using. This is in my lab. These are the publication journals that I am looking at, and I created my own list. I always make sure that the titles are written, the publisher, I need to know who is the publisher, what is the impact factor, and I'm always looking to updating that. So by this I make sure that the journal is ranked in the Science Citation Index and the IZ journal citation under Thomson Reuters, and then I can be sure that it works to publish here. Make sure you are always having a publication with impact factor. Now comes the question, select low or high impact factor journals. This is a challenge. You have here some journals in my field of specialization, the journal, for example, of energy conversion and management, it has an impact factor of 5, relatively high. And then another journal like the Journal of Renewable Energy, it has an impact of something like 1 point something, or even sometimes less than 1. Between high impact, low impact, this comes difficulty to go through it. So I always advise you to make a balance. You need to have a balance between low and high impact and middle impact, and with experience you will be able to identify the best journals that match your research area. Once you have selected a journal, it's important to carefully study its aims, read the journal aims, the scope of the journal, and some recent issues of the journal to understand whether is it writing matching your topic or not. So here is the abstract, for example. Does the subject match the journal? Is the journal priority novelty or something else? Some journals, they are very focused on experimental data and monitoring. Some journals are focusing on reviews. Some journals are looking for statistical representation. Some journals are looking at modeling and equations and algorithms. So you have to see what is the scope of the journal to make sure you will not get rejected. Does the journal welcome interdisciplinary work? This is a big problem, a big challenge, because many journals having this silo focus. So they only focus on particular problems. When you come with interdisciplinarity, it's not seen as a positive thing. So make sure that you are covering this issue. Does the journal seek theoretical papers or more applied papers, like I said earlier? So the poor match is a common reason for editors to reject papers before even starting the peer review process. So it is your responsibility to make sure that you studied well the journal that you are looking to publish at, so that there is a kind of match at least. Okay, this is my list and I want to share it with you. I have this list in my office, and it is my Sustainable Building Design Lab list. This list simply is having, I update it every year. I have here the journals that I find matching my lab's interest, and then I write the impact factor in the last year, and then the impact factor in the last 5 years, and then I write here the publisher name. And as you can see, I advise you to have your own list. My own list is always updated. I'm using it to show it to my students so that they make sure that they are selecting proper publications. Already I am having strict criteria to make sure that this is a quality list. I am excluding any publication that is not having an impact factor. So I'm making sure that there is an impact factor publication, otherwise I cannot let it in to my list. Well, you can do something else, seek advice. You have a supervisor, I guess, you have a colleague, you have peers, you have other professors. Seek advice, talk to them, make sure that you publish in journals with impact factor, unless your community or your supervisor is not interested in that. So my final recommendation before closing this video, and this is the end for today, it is that you should look at how to select journal for publication. It's an important thing. Look at the impact factor, make sure it is listed in Thomson Reuters list of the Science Citation Index. Avoid predatory publishers and conferences, that's my advice. Make sure it is indexed, like I said. Make sure it is peer reviewed. We need to have good input and good feedback. Make sure it has an impact factor. I mentioned that explicitly many times so that you don't forget. Make sure your paper matches the journal scope. The match is very important. As I told you, it can reduce the processing time, because between the time you submit and you get a reject for a paper that is not matching the scope, this can take weeks. So you are losing time. Make sure the scope is matching your topic, and seek advice before submission with your supervisors. It's very important. Create your own journal list like the one I have here. I think it will be worth it to make your own list so that you leave your institution or university or the place you work on with your own list, that you feel that you belong to the community of these journal editors and reviewers. So this is my advice for today. I would like to thank you for your attention. I invite you to like the video if you find it valuable, share it with others, subscribe to my channel. This is very important. Don't hesitate to comment on the video If you have any feedback or any comments, don't hesitate to contact me. It's very important to hear from you what you find useful, if you need specific topics to be covered. And thank you for your attention for the topic of today, how to select a journal paper for publication. Thank you.